Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal again, here for PIVC 2020, and I have the lovely Mark D here with us. Just before I remind to everybody, we are we are in the midst of lots of internet usage, so if things may glitch here and there, apologies for that. Worst case scenario, if there's a link that's missing at all, or if the internet goes down completely, we've got ways to be able to get Mark's presentation back out to you guys, whether it's pre-recorded or we schedule another time like this as well, but I don't think that's going to. So thanks everybody so much for joining in. Oh, good. Oh, we've got Kai. Everyone else is jumping in. Wonderful. Now, I'm going to tell a little bit about Mark himself. He is a former police detective with over 35 years experience of investigating. He now trains detectives and intelligence officers for the police. His interest in the paranormal goes back to his childhood and later as a cop, and a desire to find and investigate his own X-Files. An active member and trainer of ASSAP, he runs the groups and NRPI sections. And today, tonight's session, we will talk about effective ways to structure your paranormal investigation. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, everybody. And thanks, Beth, and thanks for putting this on, because it's keeping us occupied whilst people are in lockdown. And I think it's a really great idea to do these virtual conferences. I think we've all been working slightly differently all around the world. I've had to adapt because I normally sit in front of a classroom of students, and I've had to run virtual classrooms. And as you can see with my background behind me, I'm in the smallest room in the house. It's not quite the cupboard under the stairs, quite like Harry Potter. But I've got a window, which is good, but it's somewhere where I can go and I'm not quite so distracted. So we're going to be talking about a structured approach to investigation. And you don't really get to write great books like John Fraser's written in relation to poltergeists without having some form of a plan or structure in relation to investigations. So I'm going to do a presentation for about just over half an hour, and then there'll be time at the end to take some questions. So as Beth has mentioned, I've been a professional investigator for over 35 years as a police officer, been in various roles. And after retirement, I carried on as a civilian trainer, and that's where I work at the moment. That's my day job. So I train investigators and intelligence officers. But back in the 1990s, as a young cop, like many others of that particular area, I was fascinated by Chris Carter's X-Files. And I joked with my colleagues at the time that I'd like to someday investigate my own X-Files. And I mean, I like the skeptical approach of Scully, which balanced the believer approach of Mulder. I was probably somewhere in between the two of them. Didn't go along with the conspiracy theories or the unanswered endings, though, because when you deal with real people, you're going to deal with real problems. So you have to have an ethical approach and a structure to help find answers. Mulder and Scully seem to have that sort of approach. I've got a picture up there. I don't know whether you can see it, but that was the episode that probably freaked me and my wife out most. It was the Eugene Toombs. I think there was 2 episodes. And he's the guy that would elongate his limbs and hide in wall cavities and prey on you and eat your livers to stay alive. That stayed with me for a few years, I can tell you. It took me a couple of decades really to be serious about investigating. But after some investigation work of my own, mainly into haunting phenomena, I joined a local investigation team in the west of England. But I also signed up to ASSAP as a member. ASSAP stands for the Association of the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena. I was pleased to find that they offered a scientific approach to investigation, and they also provided some structure. So what is ASSAP? ASSAP's an educational charity. It's founded in 1981. It's concerned with the scientific research of anomalous phenomena. One of the things we say, certainly when you join ASSAP and certainly when you come on our training weekends, is that when you carry out investigation, you leave your belief system at the door. So you carry out an investigation in an objective way and leave any biases that you have at the door. And we just look for the facts. So we're concerned in scientific research of anomalous phenomena. We educate through our website and through member newsletters, and provide a quarterly magazine called Seriously Strange and a yearly research journal called Anomaly. So ASSAP provides a national research framework. So for our members, we can actually provide grants to carry out research into the paranormal. We've also got a national network of trained investigators through our NRPI and a national affiliated group system. So a few years ago, ASSAP had UK government professional body status, which allowed us to put together a national register of professional investigators. And that helps us to train and to make sure that we have an ethical approach to investigation, particularly going into people's homes and investigating. So over the years, then, I've come to realise that there's a number of different investigation models. ASSAP can provide you investigation models. We run a 2-day training. We have a foundation training weekend and then an advanced training weekend. I think that slide's just coming up. Of which Beth recently partook, and so we had the pleasure of her company in March when we ran our last training weekend. So over the years, I've come to realise that there's a number of investigative models used all over the world which provide a structure to investigation and assist to prioritise decisions and actions after careful consideration of the facts. This structure ensures that evidence is gathered effectively and that there's a consideration for risk and for human rights. As investigators of anomalous phenomena, this should be at the heart of our investigation, particularly when we have vulnerable clients that we're dealing with. So here's a model of investigation used by the UK police. It's known as the building blocks of investigation. So the first building block, this is what we teach our staff when they start to become police officers. The first building block is to preserve life. The second building block then is to preserve the scene. And then we move on to securing evidence, identifying victims, and identifying suspects. So we do it in that manner because it's the priority. You turn up at the scene of an incident, perhaps someone's been assaulted, and the first thing you've got to do is to administer first aid. So we need to make sure that we're looking after the people at the scene, but we also, it's not just about preserving life, it's making sure that people don't come to any harm. So, let's say, for example, you turn up at the scene of an accident, you need to make sure that everybody is safe. And we do the building blocks in that particular format, preserve life, preserve the scene, secure evidence, identify victims, and identify suspects, because we deal with things in the priority of how we're going to present them. So that's a tried and tested method of investigation. And I quite like models. I've been used to using models over the years, and you pick and choose which ones work for you. Okay, so I wondered whether we could adapt these particular models for paranormal investigation. So what I've looked at is putting together a simple, straightforward structure to investigate anomalous phenomena. So hopefully that's going to appear on your screen. There's a little bit of a delay here, so just bear with me. So this is what it could look like, the building blocks of paranormal investigation. So we should have a foundation for any structure that we build. We should have some from the foundation. And the foundation, for me, is an ethical approach and some training and some knowledge. And then the building blocks could run in order of identifying harm and risk, securing evidence, eliminating normal factors, developing a hypothesis and investigating, and then evaluating what we've found out from the investigation, and then concluding and reporting. So that's a method, I think, that is quite a simple, straightforward method that could be used to investigate any type of anomalous activity or anomalous report. So let's break it down a little bit. So foundation and ethics. The foundation for any investigation is a knowledge of ethical practice, adopting an ethical approach and having an in-depth knowledge and understanding of the subject matter through training and study. Now, ASSAP provide a code of ethics for investigators, and other societies do as well. So the Society of Psychical Research also have a code of ethics and an ethical approach. Investigators need to understand scientific methodology though, because if we're going to be serious about it and we're going to provide credible information, then we need to show our methodology and how we come by any conclusions that we've made. So that doesn't mean that we use an array of gadgets and equipment. It means gathering all available facts first and then putting together an investigation plan, evaluating the results of data and reporting your findings. So the investigation structure then could be achieved by going through the additional building blocks. So this is our foundation. So moving on then. So identifying harm and risk. And if we do identify any harm and risk, then we've got to think about producing a strategy to manage it. So very often, initial contact doesn't follow an assessment of vulnerability, harm, or risk. A message is left by voicemail, it could be an email, or some other contact, usually quite brief, requiring further contact to establish the nature of the investigation. Careful questioning, though, will draw out facts being reported, but this needs to be done in a manner which establishes information about the caller so that the assessment can be made about the ages of the people involved, any suspicion of health or physical or mental risks for the client or any other person involved, the vulnerabilities of those people, and any social or other moral risks in taking on the investigation in the first place. So having a code of ethics can really help you with that. So it provides you with that structure that allows you to make an assessment as to whether this is a case that should be dealt with, or whether these people have, that are providing us with this information have got other needs, and we may be able to signpost and refer them to perhaps medical support or support from their social services and mental health teams. When a clear risk is identified, investigators have got three options. Firstly, they can politely decline to investigate where the risk to individuals outweighs the need to investigate. For example, somebody's been recently bereaved, then maybe we'll put off the investigation until such time as they've got over that particular grief. Secondly, where there is a need to safeguard individuals, then a referral should be made to the relevant safeguarding agency. For example, if there's mental health issues apparent, referral to the local social services mental health team, or where coercive and controlling behaviour is apparent, to police or social services. Unfortunately, I've had to adopt both safeguarding approaches during the course of my investigation work over the last 10 years or so. The third option available is when risks are acceptable with proper management, is to continue to investigate but have a working strategy and put together a risk assessment around how you're going to manage things. I'll give you an example of that. So let's say, for example, removing a vulnerable person from a central position of the investigation, ensuring that they're not present during it. So where a parent's reporting that a child has experienced phenomena, you might wish to use the parent's account to establish the facts and remove the child from the process completely, because it just might be too traumatic for the child, and we don't know what effect that any investigation is going to have on them. So the next stage then is to secure evidence. So because most anomalous phenomena investigations are spontaneous in nature, this usually means interviewing witnesses. A good interview will elicit much information pertaining to the who, what, where, and when of any circumstances leading to the witnessing of the event or the activity. The how and the why questions may not be answered during the interview, but can be examined during any hypothesis development and during the investigation. So once a witness has been spoken to, there may be corroborative evidence available, such as other witnesses. So we need to try and identify all those witnesses and even interview people who were present that didn't actually see anything, because we need as full a picture as possible. CCTV can help corroborate, so we should be looking for CCTV. Certainly in the UK, there is CCTV absolutely everywhere. including, people's private CCTV. So it's only a case of being diplomatic and knocking on a few doors and seeing whether people are able to help you. And now people carry dash cameras within their cars. Then it's the potential for providing more corroborative evidence is huge, particularly when you're dealing with things like sightings of lights in the sky. I'm sure we can all remember the fireball that went over Russia a few years ago and caused that sort of sonic explosion, captured on loads of dash cams that went viral quite quickly. But also people carrying mobile phones. You're carrying a device that's capable of recording audio and video recording. It just amazes me that we haven't had more sightings of anomalous things, because virtually everybody carries a mobile phone nowadays capable of capturing evidence. It's important to gather these as soon as possible, ensuring that they're captured in their raw state, uncontaminated and unedited. And this is a real problem, because certainly when I get referrals that are video footage or photographs, you don't tend to get the raw footage. You just get the stuff that they want to show you. So you need to be able to see the whole video, the whole photograph. You need to see how it was taken. You need to get the EXIF data off the photographs to be able to understand a bit more about the nature of how that evidence was obtained. So this ensures that the integrity is maintained for peer analysis, because if we want to be able to show that something potentially is paranormal, then we need to be able to analyze the data and analyze the recorded evidence. So a working copy of any video or audio or photograph can be produced from a master copy to enable enhancement. So once evidence is secured, it can be examined to provide further lines of inquiry. So there's our two heroes, Mulder and Scully, on their way to go and interview some witnesses. And certainly they had a good structure in relation to how they went about gathering evidence. I wouldn't suggest that we go out and carry out autopsies, though, not unless you're trained to do so, obviously. So moving on then. So eliminate normal factors. So this will require a survey of the location to ascertain extraneous factors which may be the cause of reported phenomena. A sound knowledge of commonly occurring natural phenomena will assist investigators in excluding factors that can be explained with or without further investigation or replication of the conditions. It's something you pick up really through experience. So certainly when I first started out, probably over 15 years ago now, I had a very limited knowledge of some of those naturally occurring things that could potentially be misperceived as being paranormal. You build this up over a period of time. And as John mentioned earlier, joining a group actually helps to share that knowledge and share that understanding of some of those things that people think might be paranormal, but actually probably have a natural cause. So a sound knowledge of commonly occurring natural phenomena will assist the investigator in excluding factors that can be explained with or without further investigation or replication of the conditions. In some reputedly haunted locations, it may take some time to establish naturally occurring phenomena, including sounds, vibrations, low light shadows, reflections, and examination of the operation of any equipment, including equipment used by the client to record their activity. This will also include an examination of the structure of the property. For example, the plumbing, electrical appliances, and animals that are present on the property, and rodents and birds living within the property, together with the impact of weather conditions and external factors such as vehicles and other properties or houses nearby. So that's the type of survey that you need to be carrying out after you've spoken to your witnesses. And it's quite handy to have the client or the witness with you when you're actually carrying out that survey, because what you can do is it provides you with a bit more context about the things that they've been talking about. And it also helps their memory. So it may be at this time that an assessment of the client and witness gives rise to some form of suspicion that some influence or cognitive ability may have taken place. This could occur in conditions of tiredness, hallucinatory moments, the influence of alcohol and drugs, misperception of shapes, noises, smells, and objects moving. The relationship between attention and perception of a witness at the time of an event should be explored in as much detail as possible. Often returning to the scene with a witness will help develop the context of what occurred. Where possible, examination should take place in as close to the conditions that were present when the phenomena occurred. So it's really important that you get to visit these locations as quickly as possible afterwards. The longer you leave it, all those conditions are going to change. As time elapses between the event being witnessed, the examination of the location of the witness, the examination of the location or the witness, the more chance there is of changes, environmental changes and contamination of memory. So environmental factors will vary greatly at external locations, but time of visit should be as close as possible to the reported phenomena. So if visited at night, a revisit during the day might reveal important detail unobserved. For example, examining a location where a witness saw lights in the sky. It may not be apparent at the time, but a check of Google satellite images and a return later might reveal that the lights that were that of a vehicle or farm machinery, and where there was thought to be sky, there's in fact land consisting of hills some distance away. Certainly I found that out when I've been looking into cases that have been in the local reported press. And when you actually go to those locations and examine them yourself, you can see that in the distance there are hills and roads, and what people perceive to be lights in the sky are actually vehicles. So the next building block then is build a hypothesis and investigate. So a hypothesis is just really a theory, because what we need to do is to eliminate the naturally occurring to be able to find out what potentially could be paranormal. So when enough information is compiled, it may be possible to develop hypotheses as to what may have occurred or be occurring. The investigation plan should be developed to test the hypothesis. There may be more than one hypothesis to test, however, and there will be more than one hypothesis. Prioritization, sorry, that's easy for me to say, can be made using the principle of Occam's razor. So if you've ever heard of Occam's razor, William of Ockham was a 14th century monk who developed a principle that the hypothesis based on the least number of assumptions is likely to be the best hypothesis. So base your hypothesis on what is known before speculating what might be going on. An example of this principle would be as follows. A client reports that they're being visited at night by a ghostly entity that stands at the bottom of the bed and speaks to them. They also hear strange noises which sound like someone walking about. They live alone, have no pets. Interviewing the client reveals that they only moved to the property 4 weeks ago. They haven't been able to sleep much, and they live in a mid-terrace property. An understanding of a number of potential contributory factors for these phenomena might help to develop a plan to investigate. Likely hypothesis would be that the client is experiencing near sleep experiences, together with the effects of new house effect. So as the brains are still unfamiliar with the natural surroundings and movements of the property. So this could be tested by vigils backed up with some form of camera recording at night operated by the client to record what happens when they're asleep. It may be that the sounds of the footfall and talking can be explained as noise travelling from adjacent properties, not noticed by the client. Of course, the regularity of phenomena occurring will dictate the type of investigative response. If investigation doesn't confirm any of the hypothesis, then we can go back to the drawing board and evaluate what we've learned and develop a new hypothesis. Within crime analysis, there is something known as the problem analysis triangle, which was developed by Felsen and Cohen in 1994. It's been used for many years to explore the relationship between an offender, a victim, and a location when a crime is committed. A crime opportunity requires that the elements converge in time and place, including 1, a motivated offender, 2, a suitable target or victim, and 3, a lack of capable guardian. It enables the analyst to identify the how and the why a crime occurred. It's a simple concept that provokes thought and analysis and identifies gaps in our information, which may need to be answered before we have a full picture of what's taken place. So the diagram that I've just put up is a depiction of an analyst analysis triangle suitable for paranormal investigation. So at the heart of this triangle is the phenomena witnessed, whether it's an apparition, a sighting of a being, an animal, or an object. It could be a sound or an object being moved. In order for the phenomena to be apparent, all three elements, a witness at a location involved with an activity, need to be in place. You may feel that a witness is not necessary, but even in circumstances that phenomena is not initially witnessed, in circumstances of perhaps poltergeist activity or phenomena captured on CCTV, there is still a witness interaction when the phenomenon is discovered. There are people living in the properties. What we must first do, though, is examine the relationship between the witness and the location. For example, is the witness familiar with the location? Research shows that people who are new to a location, such as a house, take time to adjust to the environment and become familiar with the unique sights, sounds, and movements. They misperceive things and notice things that we normally filter out because we're used to them. We must establish the lighting conditions at the time. It sounds obvious, but our eyes don't identify objects well in dim light or at night. So how good is the witness eyesight? How good is their hearing or their mental state? Are they on any medication or suffering from any illness or recently bereaved? Why was the witness at the location? What was the purpose? What was their motivation for reporting the incident? Many reports of ghost sighting are experienced by people who are just going about their business and do not expect to experience such an event. My research of inns and hotels supports these types of occurrence. However, we can't rule out the effect of priming and suggestion on the witness. So whether this is conscious or not, the very fact that you go to a location that's reputedly haunted and investigate is priming in itself. So you can't rule out the element of suggestion for anything that you may see or misperceive. These types of questions help us to determine credible lines of inquiry with a witness to explore and interview. Some will require care to elicit the information and not give the impression that we don't believe the witness. We must be careful not to contaminate the memory. So the first objective should be to obtain as full account as possible, to exhaust their recollection of the event before we embark on our own line of questioning. Next, we must examine the location, how it interacts with the witness. This normally forms part of the extraneous factors survey. By understanding the location, we can start to hypothesize some of the potential causes for the witness phenomena. We must look at the general construction of the building and layout of an open space. This requires an understanding of the common causes experienced phenomena generated by naturally occurring and man-made activity. The only way to get a sense of the norm, though, is to spend time at the location, experience it yourselves. And this may be over a number of days or different times. The very nature of what we investigate, usually in spontaneous types of occurrence, makes it very difficult for us to actually replicate the conditions and to try and generate that type of activity happening again. So do we need to look for the presence of electromagnetic fields or infrasound? Well, not initially. We should only look for these phenomena if we suspect it's present and is part of the hypothesis of potential cause of experience with correct equipment and justification. Finally, we need to examine the activity that was taking place at the time of the witnessed event. So in this, I mean that what were the people present doing? How may this interact with their perception and their attention? What was the activity at the location? Was there machinery being operated? Were there environmental or atmospheric conditions playing a part? For example, an electric storm or a strong wind or a mist? Were there other factors like the presence of animals, birds, bats, or rodents? A simple example activity would be the staff member working at a pub or a bar who's become accustomed to the large truck travelling past on the road outside. They filter out the noise. They do not recognise that the glass which appears to fall off a shelf has been set on its path by the lorries driving by and the resultant vibration which affects the shelf. The trade-off between attention and perception is an important consideration. This is particularly so when items are reported to have moved, taps have turned themselves on, or items go missing only to turn up in the most unlikely of places? Do we consciously take note of everything that we do in a house? If we did, we wouldn't get to the top of the stairs and forget the reason that we went there. And we wouldn't forget where we put our keys. If we review CCTV at the scene, we must ask the question, what areas are not covered by the camera? Of course, there are other factors that will not be answered by this approach alone, but it does provide a basis for eliminating that which may be explained. By asking ourselves these questions, our investigation can focus on the gaps in our required information and knowledge about an anomalous event. Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. If anybody remembers who said that, it was actually Sherlock Holmes, obviously written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So while some impossibilities in the context of current scientific understanding might be obvious, sometimes we may be attracted by an idea that intrigues us despite it being impossible. We must eliminate our own biases and go with the facts. So we move on to the last building block then for paranormal investigation. Evaluate, conclude, and report. So after we've completed our initial investigation, we should evaluate how effective our investigation has been to understand the phenomena reported. During any investigation evaluation, we should ask 4 questions. What do we know? What does that tell us? What do we need to know? How are we going to get that information? The answer to these questions will drive our investigative lines of inquiry. If we've not finished our investigation following evaluation, we should return to building block 4. Develop more hypotheses, if appropriate, investigate further. When we're happy that our hypothesis has been confirmed by the investigation results, we've concluded our investigation. If we cannot disprove our hypothesis, it holds weight. The nature of anomalous phenomena investigation, however, does not always lend itself to nice, clear answers. Often there's still ambiguity and the results are open to interpretation. The very concept of replication of circumstances surrounding the phenomena is not always possible. So we have to understand the impact of variables such as weather, light, temperature, vibration, and external interaction to the possible outcome. At some stage, we must conclude our findings and report what we've learned. Identify what may still be left to establish. Keeping a comprehensive record of methodology and results will provide an audit trail of the investigation process, allowing others to replicate the process to provide peer review. This is how we provide integrity to our investigations and findings. It's fair to say that contemporary investigation of anomalous phenomena has a number of varied investigation techniques in terms of understanding the various unexplained events and occurrences that are reported on a regular basis. Only with structure can we fully identify what's taking place and what still needs to be determined. This will enable us to understand the world around us better and provide credible answers to the client. Of course, the solutions are biased towards the rational and the skeptical. If this is contrary to your belief system, the client or witness, then they're far less likely to accept the opinions. Paranormal belief may be a factor in misperception of normal events as paranormal occurrences in selective discounting of information, not compatible with paranormal interpretation. However, if a scientific approach is fostered when investigating, we may find an answer to many questions about the paranormal in a manner that we can start to acquire evidence with some scientific data, whether they support the spiritual or the skeptical argument. Thank you.
Wonderful. That was a fantastic talk. That's just some fantastic information, and a lot of people actually, a lot of comments of people going, I agree, this is great. And even one just here from Justin, you know, it's what a superb talk. Thank you, Mark. You know, we need the message repeating and filtering down to everyone associated with the paranormal. So I think we can all agree with that. And yeah, fantastic information. Really, really great. Fabulous. Now, if anyone has any questions, I did grab a couple while Mark was talking. One was from somebody who said, define scientific investigating in regards to...
Sorry, say that again.
It's a very broad question. Define scientific investigating with regards to paranormal investigating.
Okay, so I mean, I guess it depends on what your motivation is in the first place. So scientific investigation has a particular structure that allows us to allow others to look at our findings. I'm not sure that all paranormal investigation has that type of structure. Certainly what you see on the TV, in the mainstream TV, in the media, the paranormal investigation that takes place, it's just TV, isn't it? You know, what are they actually trying to achieve? Are they trying to enlighten us more about the stuff that we don't quite understand? Because I for one feel that we probably understand the tip of the iceberg in relation to what there is out there to understand and what's around us. So we need some form of a method to be able to prove to others that there is something else out there, if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Just double check, there was also another one. As part of your data collecting, do you record weather, solar, lunar, geological information at your location?
Okay, so that's not something that I particularly record. Obviously, we want to know whether it happens during the day or the night. I mean, I guess there could be opportunities to carry out research to that degree. So, and there probably has been some research to do done in relation to the lunar cycles and whether that changes people's opinion as to things that occur. You know, there might be a spike in occurrences during the lunar cycle. There may not. There's something that I haven't personally looked at. But it depends on the circumstances. I think if you have a sheep dip approach to investigation, then you may be just wasting your time in relation to a lot of the factors that are reported. So you need to look at each case on its own merits. And if you think some of the external factors are important, then maybe we should record them or carry out that research separately.
Great, awesome. Now this is a rather large question from Mia. Thank you. I really love this guy. He's right up my alley. I think we'll say that. Is it a possibility with so much to analyse, as you mentioned, and if some investigators implemented your in-depth techniques, they might always dismiss an issue that actually exists because it could always be explained away?
Okay, so I'm going to have to read through that. So investigating. Yeah, certainly I'm an advocate of recording everything because we tend to, and certainly when I first started out, we would just record the hits that we got. So those things that tended to support our hypothesis or supported perhaps our belief system. We certainly got to record everything. So we've got to record the misses as well. So simple things like, certainly it's not something that I do now, calling out, but certainly I did when I first got involved in investigation. And having that the knocking response, perhaps, where you need to record the misses that you get as well as the hits that you get if you're going to make it credible. Obviously, there are lots of factors that could cause, noises, etc., as I've sort of found out over a period of years of research and investigation. But certainly, you need to have a wide view of all the factors that affect any investigation that you take place. So it's not, again, it's like I said before, it's not a sheep dip response. We don't do everything for every investigation. You have to look at each investigation on its own merits.
Great question. There's a comment from Andy Baxter, who we both know, of course. Good overview, Mark. Recommend anyone who hasn't done the ASSAP training to do so, even if it's against your current belief system, to obtain a different perspective as an alternative reference point for life experiences. Couldn't agree myself as much as I could possibly burst with agreement. So, like as Mark had mentioned, I had attended the training weekend in March, and it was so valuable. So valuable. Recommend it, highly recommend it, everyone, on that note. So, right. CJ has a comment here. We have done lunar cycles, weather pressure. And
I knew CJ would know the answer to that question, and that's the beauty of being part of a big team, because so my forte is training, certainly interviewing witnesses, because that's obviously what I did for a living for many years. Putting together investigation plans, gathering the evidence that can be found at a particular scene. But we've got some great academics on ASSAP, and there's no monopoly on good ideas. So that's the beauty of having a team. So CJ, thank you very much for that. When it comes to research and stuff, then I go to CJ and some of the other key members of ASSAP.
Awesome. Great team. Justin has said, what can ghost hunters learn most from investigative practices found in the police force?
I guess the most important thing will be around the securing of evidence, because of the nature of a lot of paranormal investigation is spontaneous. The only thing that you can do credibly at that time is gather as much data and as much information as you possibly can. And that's obviously something that the police are quite good at. So if the information is there, then we should try and try to lock it down and to get it as quickly as possibly can. If you consider our evidence is perhaps a load of butterflies which fly on top of a bush, and we've got to put a net over that bush to make sure that we capture all the evidence that's available. Because if we don't, and we can't get there quickly enough, then all those butterflies are just going to fly away. So that's what we need to do, really, is make sure that we secure the evidence that's to be found there. Otherwise, we're not seeing the whole picture.
That's a great analogy. I've never thought of it like that. It's like that, isn't it?
I'd like to take credit for it, but it's not mine. It's one of my colleagues from work.
Oh, well, I do like that. Well, we thank him for that. But you're right. Like it's a time thing, isn't it? It's like if you don't have enough, if you let the time go too far, you're going to miss some really important information. As long as it keeps going, it's very good, very good.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously things that are occurring in the here and nows. But it may be that you've got some places like some of the best places to investigate where you're not going to have this sort of ethical consideration are some of these old buildings and museums and castles and places like that. So and you can get access to them. Sometimes you've got to pay, obviously, which sort of it grates a little bit, but that's the nature of where we are now. But what I will always try and do is go and speak to the staff that work there and find out what's happened recently, because if you're just going to deal with stuff that's happened historically, then it's all going to be lost in interpretation, really. It's going to be contaminated. So I can give you an example. There's a place near us called the Jenner Museum, and I spent some time with the staff there trying to find out their own experiences and logging those experiences. And actually, some of the hypotheses we put together, we still haven't really found out the answer to the question. I'm sure that there is, well, I don't know, the jury's out, but I'm sure that potentially there is some sort of entity there, because people keep feeling this dog that potentially lives on the premises that everybody's heard and everyone's felt brushing against them. And these are people that just work there, visitors,
And we have a question here from Jenny. Are there training groups in Australia? If not, what should we be doing about setting one up? I'm not sure. Well, you may not be more familiar with associations in Australia as yet, I would imagine.
No, I'm not. I'm not aware of any, Beth, but you might be.
The closest we have is the Australian Institute of Parapsychological Research, or APA. That's probably the closest as far as training, but that is more from parapsychology, not from an active investigation method, which is why I absolutely love ASSAP and its approach, because it's different. I think it's good to have knowledge of parapsychology, but there's only so much of it you can really use for if you want to look at investigating possible paranormal phenomena in someone's home, sort of thing. It's obviously a lot more research and data based and academic as well. So I That's what I love with ASSAP. I totally agree. I think Australia really does need an ASSAP. I think every country needs one. And as I said, it's a very neutral organisation. And, there's not one group, paranormal group, that would try and, sort of go, oh, we're going to roll out training and teach everybody how we're going to do it. Like, it's very, very methodical and, evidence-based as much as you can. It's fabulous training material. So there you go. I've answered it for you. All right.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks for that plug. The last slide that I put up actually has got some contact details. So I know you're going to share this on YouTube. So we have inquiries from other investigation teams around the world. I'm currently looking at a team in central Illinois in the States who are quite interested in becoming an affiliated group. It's obviously it's not easy for us to do training, but maybe that's something we should look at as a result of this lockdown, having to work virtually. It's maybe that we can look at doing some virtual training in the future.
That would be incredible. I know so many people that would snap at that all around the world. Having come from Australia, it would just be so beneficial. You could, definitely, 100%. That's a great idea. Okay, We've got a comment here from Kerry. The talk was excellent, but if repeated, you might want to put it in a simple vision of the 7 steps of the scientific method for those who don't already know it. It would show how well your investigation steps relate back to that. There you go, some feedback.
Yeah, thank you very much. Feedback is a gift. Thank you.
All right. And then we've got Nigel here. Wow, this is a weird one. Sorry, I heard a talk at the Ghost Club some years ago and on the effects of low-level carbon dioxide poisoning. This includes effects seen in hauntings, including visual and audio hallucinations. This was very common in the Victorian era, but not common now. However, it could be deadly. This is a risk of harm for investigators and clients. Should be checked at sites for health and safety. That's a really good comment. I would totally agree with that, Nigel. And certainly when you go to a location and you're considering doing an investigation, then you should always carry out a risk assessment. And it may be a simple thing like taking a carbon monoxide monitor with you is something to do. It's each case on its own merits, but when you're dealing with perhaps feelings of drowsiness, nausea, then you've got to bottom out potential other causes other than perhaps something that's otherworldly. Let's use Occam's razor and deal with it as in the simple terms first and eliminate those. Great thoughts. And the same thing goes for things like electromagnetic fields and infrasound. The research that's been done is that it doesn't affect everybody. So it affects different people in different ways. So if you think that potentially is one of the causes, then you need to be able to eliminate that, don't you? That's exactly it. I think there's a condition which I forget the exact acronym for it, but it's electrosensitivity. I think it's where people are really sensitive to electrical currents. I think some scientists don't think or agree with it, but what are your thoughts on stuff like that?
Yeah, there was, I think most people are aware of Michael Persinger's research that he did back in the 1980s with his God helmet and subjecting his students to electromagnetic fields and trying to induce this godly religious experience. It didn't work on everybody. And those people that have tried to replicate it haven't been able to replicate the conditions or haven't been able to replicate the findings. So, there's lots of theories out there. There's a lot of research being done out there in the parapsychology departments. So it's worth looking up on those things, definitely.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. And here's another question that's come in. False memories are also have an effect on supposed paranormal encounters. What's Mark's view on that?
Yes. Yeah. Certainly there's been an awful lot of research on false memories, obviously within the criminal investigation world and within obviously the law, people defending people. So it has been shown through research that people can have false memories. We're human beings at the end of the day. We can get things wrong. And the way that our brains work is we fill in some of the gaps. So certainly when you get to my age, you have to fill in the gaps because your memory isn't as good as it used to be. Yeah, there are certain things with false memories. Certainly, if I've had the unfortunate, been in the fortunate position to deal with child abuse cases, and certainly, it is a fact that there are false memories out there. So, but there's an awful lot of reasons why people do have these perceptions and these recollections. And if you look at cases in relation to alien abduction, there's far more than simple, straightforward occurrences taking place there. You've really got to deal with the witness and get to the bottom of all the factors that might be playing a part in those particular experiences.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now this is a rather large comment, so it's going to take up the screen again, so apologies. Right. The scientific community does not accept what we do as scientific, I believe, for the reason that human consciousness has not been proven, and is that basically what we are doing is investigating the survival of the human consciousness as an intelligent haunting. So until then, will the official scientific community ever accept or respect what we do?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, and that's something that we hear at pretty much every ASSAP conference that we run every year. We obviously we are belief neutral, so we invite people from all sides of the spectrum to come and give talks at our ASSAP conferences, and we invite people from the parapsychology community. And then obviously there are people from the sort of mainstream ghost hunting community, and there are different belief systems in play there. I think all you can do really is foster good science, because we're never going to get to find the answer to all these questions about whether there is an afterlife or what is affecting people out there, unless we follow good science. Otherwise, everything is assumption led.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. So it's leaving your beliefs at the door. And then as before you even, sort of take on a case or go into a location, it's being aware, like you say, and being as a clean slate as much as possible. Absolutely. Have you ever used statistics in your investigations?
Personally, I haven't. I've not needed to, but other ASSAP members have carried out research and have used statistics. Dr. Becky Smith has done some research in relation to, paranormal experiences. So yes, we do use statistics, and certainly within our journal Anomaly, a lot of the findings are produced within statistics. So, it's a lot of the people that provide evidence for our Anomaly journal are carrying out things as they would do in other mainstream journals. So statistics are widely used, and it helps us to get a picture as to what's taking place. I tend to deal with the personal interaction with witnesses and with locations. Statistics probably could come into their own when you're dealing with data, for example, temperature changes, that type of data.
True, very true. Right. I think this is a comment from Barbara. Trying to get evidence is hard most of the time as an investigator. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to set yourself up really to be in a position to capture any evidence, and that doesn't mean to say that that you're just looking at capturing the location of where things are taking place. You've got to be able to deal with all those factors that people can argue, well, you didn't cover this, you didn't do that. So, for example, when I've gone to certain locations, we'll put CCTV covering some of the corridors so that we can show there's nobody moving in those locations. And, we're able to differentiate between noises and things that are taking place, particularly when you're dealing with auditory phenomena. So, yes, you're absolutely right. It's very difficult to gather this evidence. So that's why you need a big team.
Yeah, that's it. And all on the same wavelength, I think, also helps as well. Everyone's their approach is the same methodical approach, which is definitely beneficial. Now, has anyone else got any other questions? Oh, here we go. As a medium, I do not need scientific proof of the afterlife, but as a paranormal investigator, I follow the procedures of scientific methods for comparison. What are your thoughts on working with mediums?
Yeah, yes. Again, certainly I go along with ASSAP's approach: leave your belief at the door, follow science when you carry out an investigation. So your belief for me, is irrelevant. As long as we all follow the same methodology, then we've all got something. We've all got something to add to an investigation. Your belief is your belief. I'm not ever going to change anybody's belief, and my beliefs are my beliefs. So my beliefs are private to me.
Kerry says, do you see your job as an investigator more to collect data than to prove an hypothesis?
Right. It's both, really, to prove hypothesis. So if you were a skeptic, then you would be looking to prove that there was no life after death. I think you've got to keep an open mind, and this is certainly something that ASSAP fosters, is we will go in with an open mind, and we will look to see where the evidence takes us. So I don't think really it's not about proving a hypothesis. Actually helps us to develop an investigation plan that actually works. And if we can't prove our hypothesis, then we find another hypothesis. If we can't disprove our hypothesis, then it means our hypothesis is possibly correct. So collection of data goes along towards proving or disproving a hypothesis.
Absolutely, right. And of course, CJ has posted the link here if anyone wants to. I mean, you'd have to write it down along, or at least click on the group chat there. As it does have a Facebook group as well, Facebook page, apologies. So go and check that out as well. Thanks for the mention there, CJ. And you'll be able to catch up on anything that's happening, whether it's, there's always some great articles that get posted, which I've been reading, are fantastic as well, particularly in this environment.
Our website that is maintained by Maurice Townsend is a fantastic resource, particularly for people who are starting out. It's one of those things that you can build up a knowledge database of some of those likely things that are occurring that gets misperceived for paranormal all the time.
Yeah, I've been sharing content on ASSAP's website for years. It's just because it's so relevant. It's, like I said, it's practical information. It's things that people can do and use and take on board. And the winning point, of course, as we mentioned, it's not belief based. It's information, and it's fantastic. It's great talk, Mark. Yes. And thank you for your time, Mark. It was so amazing looking at it from that point of view, from your criminal investigative work and how you worked it to put it into the paranormal field. Thank you for that.
Thanks very much, Mel. Yeah, thanks very much, Mel. I guess it's my life at the end of the day, so yeah, I'm quite passionate about it.
Very good. Lots of people saying it was really interesting, very interesting, very much thank you. Wonderful. Lots of people saying thank you. It's great talk, something to refer back to a lot. Exactly, it's going back. There's a lot of wonderful information that Mark was able to bring up. And that's one good thing with one good thing with this particular format is the fact that people can actually watch back on these videos and absorb it more, because there's a lot of wonderful information as well. We're kind of nearing towards the end, so if anyone's got any, oh no, we've got another question. Good. It's more of a comment. I'm the same as a medium, trying to get evidence as well as doing my job. That's why having a good team behind you obviously would be very important. Exactly.
Yeah, it's great. Fantastic. Great comments. Thanks, Barbara.
Awesome. So if anyone hasn't got any other questions I can't see coming in, we might end it there. Oh,
okay, Beth. Beth, thank you very much. As I say, that last slide has got our contact details. CJ's written the contact details up. If anybody wants to, any help with any investigations that they've got, we're only too happy to take your questions and to give as much help that we can. So, our door is always open, so to speak. And what I'll do is I'll send you the details of the presentation. What was written in the presentation. If you want to share that separately, then you can do.
Awesome, that'd be fantastic. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for your time, giving up your time and sharing your knowledge. It's been very invaluable, and I really, really appreciate it. And everyone else watching and as well really appreciate it. So thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, Beth, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for putting it on. It's given us something to do during lockdown.
Not a problem. Do take care. Thank you again. See you,
Okay,
everybody.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.